I Am Anonymous, Chapter 2, The Goddess, Part 1. It's been 3 months since Anonymous arrived in Ponyville, and plenty has happened. Word of Anon's part-time profession spread throughout the small town. Many ponies approached Anon, extremely wary of him, with a job offer. Within the first week, Anon had earned 800 bits. Most ponies paid him by the hour, so getting money wasn't hard. After the first month, Anon bought an abandoned house on the edge of town. It was old, and most ponies called it a shack. Almost every aspect of the house needed repairs. Anon began slowly but surely repairing the home. With building supplies he bought with the bits he earned. Along with the reserves, he purchased the various tools he needed. When the house was almost livable, Anon purchased cheap wooden furniture that wasn't already there. However, a lot of the furnishings needed repairing. The mattress he had bought, he had to stuff it. And the sheets had many tears and holes. The only blanket remotely clean was the one given to him by the main six. The house had a wooden stove that was in decent condition, so Anon cooked a lot of his food on it. Plumbing was a challenge, but he managed to fix it. Then he had a fully functioning sink and shower. Bathing in a river wasn't the best thing in the world. With the bits he had left over, Anon purchased food. The food was primarily vegetables, fruit, and bread. The meat was a little harder to acquire. He had to hunt using snares and traps, mainly for small game animals. Fluttershy tried to stop Anonymous from killing the animals, but she only got a blank stare and gets told to get lost. She tried using her secret weapon called the stare. That didn't work either. Anon laughed at it and walked away. When a filly got trapped in a snare, Anon cut down on the hunting. As a meal, he usually ate soup or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Leftovers were an everyday meal as well. Over the next 2 months, Anonymous developed a system that helped him manage his time. He usually spent the first half of the day doing his freelancing job and earning money. For the second half of the day, Anon worked on the house. The work on the house was slow because Anon constantly turned down help. Despite living practically next door to the ponies for almost 3 months, Anon didn't trust them. He didn't even trust Twilight or her friends. Anon noticed that he had the same ponies asking him to do small tasks that they could do themselves. They were using him, and Anon recognized this almost immediately. To him, these ponies were the same as humans, minus the species difference. What was the worst? That the customers underpaid him. Very few of the ponies would pay him fairly. Anon didn't say anything about it because he needed the money. No matter the amount, however, the level of trust went both ways. When Anon worked at another pony's house, they consistently checked on him or watched him closely. Anon suspected their lack of trust was because of his initial entrance into Ponyville. Many ponies thought he was a monster from the Everfree Forest or a spawn of Tartarus. They called him a green monkey or the ape creature behind his back. However, Anon could hear these demeaning whispers. During the 3 months, Anon had took some time to learn about the world he landed in. One of the first things he knew was that Ponyville wasn't the only town in Equestria. Some cities are familiar to him, but they had horse-centered names, like Manhattan, San Francisco, Van Hoover, and others. There isn't a Washington, D.C., but a Canterlot is this dimension's version of Camelot. Much like D.C., it is the capital of the country. Anon also found out that Twilight wasn't the only princess in Equestria. 2 lived in the city of Canterlot, and another lived with her husband in the city-state called the Crystal Empire. Anon learned that the currency used in Equestria is called a bit, not a dollar. The money looks like ancient Greek coins. The ponies didn't use paper bills. Anon kept his paper bills just in case. Twilight Sparkle noticed a couple of things during the past few months. When Anon moved his building supplies, he'd move them without help, even if they were heavy. He often made several trips and breaks. She concluded that it was his stubbornness and self-reliant nature. Another thing that Twilight noticed was that Anon didn't make any effort to get to know any pony. He usually kept to himself and only interacted with ponies when he was doing business with them. This concerned her as the princess of friendship, which Anon laughed at when Twilight tried talking to him when he was alone. He'd snap at her and say something rude. He had this usual blank stare, but his words showed that he was bitter and cold-hearted. This went on for too long. Twilight decided to call her former mentor and fellow princess, Princess Celestia, and her sister Princess Luna. They agreed to come to Ponyville to help Anonymous. It was a warm Saturday afternoon. Twilight waits patiently for Princess Celestia and Luna just outside her castle. Her assistant, Spike, stands by her side. Unlike Twilight, Spike waits impatiently. The princesses are late, and it is rare for those two to be late. "Are you sure they're coming?" Spike asks. "Yes, I'm sure Princess Celestia and Luna made a promise they'd come, although they usually aren't this late," Twilight says. "I wonder what's keeping them." Just as Twilight stops speaking, she sees the royal chariot emerge from a cloud, pulled by 4 Pegasus guards. Their golden armor sparkles in the sun, and their blue plumes add to their appearance. It was only a few moments before they landed. The princesses exit the oversized chariot. Twilight and Spike bow as the princess approach. The taller alicorns bow as well. "Princess Celestia, it is good to see you again," Twilight says as she raises. Celestia smiles with the motherly smile she's known for. "Come on, Twilight. You can drop the professionalism, since we are not on a professional diplomatic mission," Celestia announces tenderly. Twilight and Celestia embrace in a hug. Then Twilight releases Celestia and hugs Luna. She releases Luna, and they begin walking towards Anonymous's house. The guard ponies remove their reins. Then they grab large spears that resemble dory spears from the chariot and get into a 2x2 formation behind the princesses. They march at attention, but are ever vigilant, watching for potential threats. "Twilight, I have a question about this Anonymous fellow," Luna says. "Is he a threat to any pony or Equestria?" "No, he's not a threat to any pony. At least, he hasn't shown any threatening behavior," Twilight replies. "Although, he's always carries around this abnormally large knife with him." Celestia can almost sense her guards tense up at the mention of the knife. She knows the guards are trained to protect the princesses at all costs. They are trained to fight almost every creature in Equestria and the surrounding nation. However, they aren't prepared to fight an unknown species. The group walks in silence the rest of the way. Soon the group sees the shack that Anon calls home. Anon is working on his workbench. A beer bottle is sitting next to the toolbox. He measures a wooden plank with a tape measure and marks it with his pencil. Anon begins sawing where he had drawn on the plank. The porch in front of his house needed repairs badly, so he dedicated the entire day to the project. He is focused on the sawing, but not enough to where he hears multiple hoofsteps from behind him. "Good afternoon, Anon," Twilight chirps. "What is it this time?" Anon asks. He doesn't even bother turning around. "I want you to meet some ponies that are friends of mine." Anon sighs. This isn't Twilight's first attempt to introduce him to ponies while working on a project. This irritates Anon. "Twilight, can't you see I'm..." Anon turns around, but comes face to face with Princess Celestia. "Anonymous, allow me to introduce you to Princess Celestia, Princess of the Sun, and Princess Luna, Princess of the Moon." Twilight says as she gestures her hoofs at the taller alicorns. Anon crosses his arms and leans against the workbench. He looks at Princess Celestia up and down. Anon is about 6 feet and 3 inches tall, and Celestia is about an inch taller than him, minus her horn. Celestia is tall enough to where Anon looks at her directly in the eye. However, Princess Luna is shorter than her sister. Anon estimates she's under 6 feet, despite being taller than everyone else. Anon could see other differences between the taller alicorns. The colors on their bodies represent what they were princesses of. Celestia is day, and Luna is night. Another thing Anon noticed, is that Celestia and Luna's manes billowed as if the wind were blowing them. Anon doesn't feel any wind, so he assumes it's magic causing the effect. Princess Celestia takes a particular interest in the human. His body characteristics slightly resembles a monkey's, 2 arms and 2 legs, and that's pretty much it. Celestia noted that the human had little hair on his body. There was a small amount on his arms, head, and face. The human was muscular by pony standards. Celestia silently admits that this anonymous person was slightly attractive for a non-pony. After observing the princesses, Anon spots Spike standing beside Twilight as he usually did with her. "Hey, kid," Anon says. "Hi, Anon," Spike replies. Twilight looks at Spike in utter shock. "How's life treating you?" Anon asks. "I can't complain," Anon answers back. "Same here, buddy." After just speaking to Spike, Anon's eyes wander over to the 4 guards behind the princesses. To him, the guards resemble Spartan hoplites. Save for the body armor, their spears and swords also look Spartan. Anon smirks, and he grabs his beer bottle. He takes a sip and points at the bottle at the guards. "Didn't think I was that dangerous," Anon points out. "It's just formality, Mr. Anonymous," Princess Celestia announces. "Please drop the title, Your Highness." "All right, Anonymous," Celestia says. "Twilight tells me you are from another dimension." "My dimension is similar. Besides the anthropomorphic ponies and some technology 2,000 years behind. Seriously, the technology in my world would make Twilight drool. I'm not blowing hot air either." Luna looked over at Twilight, who had a confused face, more than likely at Anon's comment. She had to admit that statement was funny. Luna chuckles slightly. "For the record, Anon, I know what your technology is like. Remember, I told you that we have a world similar to yours," Twilight announces. Anon shrugs his shoulders. "I would like to hear that about this technology." Anon nods his head as he takes another sip of his beer. "My dimension is similar, besides the anthropomorphic ponies and some technology 2,000 years behind. Seriously, this technology in my world would make Twilight drool. I'm not blowing hot air either." Luna looked over at Twilight, who had a confused face, more than likely at Anon's comment. She had to admit that statement was funny. Luna chuckles slightly. "For the record, Anon, I know what your technology is like. Remember, I told you that we have a world similar to yours," Twilight announces. Anon shrugs his shoulders. "I would like to hear about this technology your world possesses," Celestia admits. I would like to, but I can't. I've got to finish this project by nightfall," Anon says as he points his beer bottle at the broken apart porch. "Would this evening be a convenient time?" Luna asks. "We are having dinner at Twilight's castle with her friends." Anon rubs his chin and considers it. Then he looks at Luna. "It depends on if I finish my project before then," he says. Can't make any promises, though. Could I leave my guards here to assist you with the project's completion? Celestia offers. Anon furrows his eyebrows. Hard pass. This is strictly a solo mission. I don't need any pony's help. Anon curses himself slightly for using Equestria terminology. Those words that have pony in them instead of buddy or one irritates him. None of the ponies know this, of course. Anon, that looks... Twilight begins to speak, but Anon holds up a hand to silence her. His infamous blank stare causes her to stutter. I don't think you remember our conversation about helping me when I didn't ask for it. Anon turns to Celestia. I appreciate the offer, but I politely decline. Princess Celestia is confused. Never has she seen a pony turn down help, especially with a difficult task such as a reconstruction project. Then again, Anonymous isn't a pony. Human characteristics, personality traits, and whatnot aren't exactly sought-after subjects, since humans didn't come to Equestria. Anything about the human species in equestrian books is based on theories or speculations. Celestia makes a mental note to research her little information on humans. Twilight sighs and she shakes her head and motions for the group to follow her. She is disappointed that this introduction didn't go according to plan. As did the rest, she couldn't understand why Anon acted this way. Why she tried to introduce him to some pony, his behavior reminds Twilight of the Griffin's behavior. Princess Celestia, permission to speak freely, one of the guards asks, once they are out of Anon's earshot. Go ahead, Sergeant Bronzeshield, Celestia permits. I think I speak for everyone when I say the human had no excuse for dismissing you, Princess Luna and Princess Twilight like that, much less speaking to you with such disrespect. I concur, sister. Anonymous may be new to Equestria, but he needs to learn to respect royalty. Luna growls. Anon seems okay to me, Spike pipes up. The princesses look at Spike. I've talked to Anon before today. He seems nice. His taste for alcohol is hard to get past, though. Spike continues. I agree with Sergeant Shields, Luna says. When a creature acts that way, it is usually due to an internal pain. A past trauma, if you will. That could be why Anonymous is antisocial and rude when some pony talks to him, Celestia explains. I wonder why he was nice to Spike, Twilight wonders out loud. Celestia wonders the same thing. She begins thinking of possibilities that could answer the question. Perhaps it is Spike's childlike size, disposition, and innocence. Maybe Anonymous's attempt to be friends with some pony, somebody in this case. The first meeting between the two could have proved a clue. Spike, do you mind telling us how you first met Anonymous? Celestia asks. Spike scratches his head and recalls a month ago when he crossed paths with Anon. 1 month ago. Anon walks out of the tavern, clutching a small bottle of bourbon. His throat burns a little after knocking back one too many tequila shots. He is slightly more buzzed, but has enough awareness to know his way back home. This night had been like every Friday night since Anon arrived in Equestria. After a hard week's work, he would go to the local tavern called Hard Cider's Watering Hole and guzzle a few beers or whatever drink he felt like having. The bar reminds Anon of an Old West saloon, minus the constantly playing piano, gunslingers, and scantily dressed women. Anon becomes a regular there, and almost every pony in the tavern wanted to drink with him. Although he didn't particularly like being surrounded by drunken stallions and mares. Anon walks by Sugar Cube Corner and sees the owners closing up the store. He is tempted to make a last-minute stop to grab a cake or pie, but decides against it. A few ponies make their way down the street, but steer clear of Anon. This confuses him, because after 2 months he would have expected them to be less afraid of him. Maybe they could smell the alcohol on his breath and know someone under the influence doesn't react well if provoked. Or his less-than-famous entrance in Ponyville might also have something to do with it. His train of thought was interrupted when he hears a voice call out, Excuse me, Mr. Anonymous? Anon looks around and sees a small dragon, a drake, walking up to him. Can I help you? Anon asks, as his hand rests on his knife hilt. I just wanted to introduce myself, the drake says. He extends a hand. I'm Spike, Princess Twilight's assistant. Anon squats down, takes his hand off his knife, and shakes Spike's hand. He's impressed by Spike's firm grip. How did you know my name? Wait, don't tell me. Twilight? Anon says. You got it. I knew it. Anon rubbed his chin and looked Spike up and down. Twilight's assistant, huh? I'm sorry. What's that supposed to mean? Do her nosy questions ever bother you? I've known her all my life, so I guess I've gotten used to it. Easier said than done. I swear to God, she's more nosy than Pinkie Pie, Anon announces. Nosier than Pinkie Pie? I'd have to disagree with you there. Fair enough. You know them better than I do. An awkward pause follows. So, how do you like it here in Equestria? Spike asks. Anon rubs his chin. Equestria is better than my world, that's for sure, Anon admits. Does your family miss you? You've been here a long time. Anon's mood changes from calm to angry in an instant. Hell, if I know, I sincerely doubt they miss me if I'm being honest, Anon says a bit too forcefully. Why wouldn't they miss you? As Twilight usually did, Anon is tempted to snap at Spike for asking prying questions about his family. However, Spike had only asked him 2 questions about his family, not a few hundred. He didn't use indirect questions to trick Anon into talking about his family or past. Spike doesn't know, so Anon responds like he answered the first time Twilight asked about his history. That's none of your damn business, Anon says coldly. His piercing blank stare sends chills down Spike's spine. I'm sorry, I was just curious. Spike apologizes. Apology accepted, kid. Anon's mood changes quickly from angry to calm. He stands up and studies Spike for a second. Perhaps this Drake isn't like the other ponies that dominate the town. He's better. You know what, kid? You're alright. That's more than I can say about some of the people around here. How so? For example, Twilight is a pain in the ass. Her questions push more boundaries than a nosy neighbor. What's more annoying is when she keeps shoving her friends down my throat. Pinkie Pie is like a kid who has ADHD that ate an entire bag of rock candy, and a gallon-sized bag, to be more specific. Rainbow Dash is on the verge of getting prank war declared on her ass. Anon's comments make Spike nervous. He worries about hearing a negative comment about a particular mare, but asks anyway. What about Rarity? Spike asks, attempting to sound casual. Rarity? She's okay. She made me a pair of shorts after I washed her windows. Rarity said it was a payment. Anon replies, "Why do you ask?" Spike blushes. "No reason." Anon rolls his eyes. He knows the reason why. "Oh, I did catch her gawking at me when I had my shirt off on that hot day 2 weeks ago. That was an awkward conversation." Spike's calm demeanor immediately goes into shock. Rarity was eyeing the human. It would not be very good if Rarity and Anon got together. Tartarus would be paradise compared to that situation. Anon sees the shock on Spike's face. He shakes his head, but with a smile on his face. "If it's any consolation to you, Rarity isn't anywhere near my type. Both species and personality-wise. I can't stand a girl who stands in front of a mirror for 30 minutes and pays a fortune for stupid pedicure," Anon says. "There's nothing wrong with that," Spike announces, slightly defensive. "You've been hanging around girls too much. Tell you what, come by my house tomorrow morning, say at 9 a.m., and I'll show you what guys do for fun." Okay. I'm sure Twilight won't mind if I take the morning off." Anon turns around and looks at the sun. It's just below the horizon. The sky is a mixture of pink, purple, and orange. The streets turn almost black. The only thing lighting the roads is the full moon and a few lampposts. Anon decides it's time to return home. "Hey, listen, I need to get home, but it was a pleasure talking to you, Spike," Anon announces as he faces Spike. "I need to get back to the castle anyways. I guess I'll see you tomorrow, Anon," Spike says. "Can I call you Anon?" "Sure, everyone does. You can probably guess who gave me the nickname." Spike nods his head. The two wave as they go their separate ways. Well, that was Chapter 2, Part 1. Not bad. It's okay. Sorry about the really bad schedules, too. I've just been doing quite a bit of stuff, so haven't really gotten to doing much. So kind of expect for the next few weeks or until I can get some time to do this in a regular schedule. So expect the late schedule every now and again, but other than that, yeah. Also, thank you everyone for the support. It's kind of crazy how I already skyrocketed to basically almost 200 within almost a month now? It's crazy to me. It's free. Also, I like reading your guys' comments, so it's always fine for you guys to leave comments down below, and I'll read them and respond to them if I got an answer for them at least, which most of the time that I do. So, yeah, leave one if you like. I'll probably get to it because I love reading them anyway. And everyone, I guess, stay golden. Have a good day.